Well, I'm just hoping this isn't too windy today. We'll see how good these mics are. Anyway, there's been a lot going on, and I think what a lot of people need, instead of people like me complaining all the time about how bad everything is, I think what we all need is solutions. And I think the solutions are there, and they're not difficult to figure out. First of all, the minor issue of getting a decent party into government. And to me, the only decent party out there that can do this is Advance UK. Once you've done that, then you can really look at what's happening, and you can really do something about the problems. Because the problems that we're all facing are pretty much to do with Islamism and communism. That's the two major threats. The communists are basically taking over everything. So that's actually a bigger problem than the Islamists. So let's have a look at the Islamists. And again, what we're talking about here are the nutcases in this country that want Sharia law. And remember, in the Henry Jackson poll last year, it was 32% of Muslims in the UK wanted Sharia law. Now, to me, that's alarming. That's a very alarming statistic. And I would say either they change their minds or they have to go. I think it's as simple as that. So how do you do that? How do you get rid of the Muslims that want Sharia law in the UK? Well, the first thing is you ban the Sharia courts, because obviously the Sharia courts, anything to do with marriage, anything to do with family and other stuff, if you stop them operating, that is one of the massive pillars of Sharia that is causing all sorts of problems. And let's get it right, it's causing problems for Muslim women and for Muslim children. It's not causing problems for the polygamous men that can get a very cheap, easy, quickie divorce. So that's the first thing. Second thing, halal slaughter. Barbaric, totally against the values of Britain. Britain is a country that's taken great pride in animal welfare for over 200 years. Incidentally, it was evangelical Christians that first started talking about animal welfare in the late 1700s, early 1800s, and started what eventually became the RSPCA. But that's just a little aside. So halal slaughter, whatever way you dress it up, whatever they say about being half stunned or whatever, you're praying over an animal and slitting its throat and letting it bleed out. Now, again, in my book, that's animal cruelty. So ban halal slaughter. So that's two pillars gone, because if your Islamic Sharia family courts are basically disrupted and your food supply is now disrupted, well, as an Islamist, you've got a bit of a problem, haven't you? Because you're going to have all sorts of family problems, and not being able to eat your halal food is going to make you very, very hungry. So the third one, and this is one that, again, these are all things that aren't specifically targeted at Islamists. They're targeted at just bad practice and bad ways of living. So the third one, cousin marriage. The statistics on deformity of children that have been, I suppose you might say, victims of cousin marriage, because a lot of these kids born to cousin marriages, as the inbreeding goes on and on and on, these kids suffer dreadfully. They're a massive burden on the NHS, and it's totally unnecessary. So get rid of cousin marriage. That's number 4. Number 5, and this is really about the emancipation of Muslim women, because I'm pretty sure there are some crazy Muslim women that like to stick on the niqab and walk round, what was it Boris called them, like letterboxes. Very, very offensive. You shouldn't have said that, Boris. But anyway, I think we should ban the burqa. I think Robert Jenrick's completely right about that. The burqa absolutely needs to be banned. So what have we got? We've got Sharia courts, halal food, cousin marriage, banning the burqa. Well, there's some good starts. There's some really good starts. And the next one, and again, let me know in the comments what you think about these. The next one is the hate preachers. I think the hate preachers have to go. Anybody that is standing up in a mosque and preaching anti-Semitism or anti-Christian messages, or messages that are calling for the death of the infidel or for the stoning of adulterers, any of that stuff, anybody that's going through that sort of stuff, to me, it's really very, very simple. Those people do not need to be in our country. I'm sure many of them were born outside the country. So they get deported. They have to go. And then we look at the Hamas hate marches. And if you've got Islamists, okay, if you've got Islamists that aren't born in this country, whether they've managed to get themselves British citizenship or not, if you've got people who are promoting Hamas, promoting these evil, evil causes, well, it's very simple. They're going to. So you can start to thin out the Islamists in our midst. And then, of course, we've got the how did I nearly miss this one out? Then, of course, we've got the ever-present terrorist watch list. We keep being told that there's all these people on the terror watch list. Well, why are they on a watch list when we can't watch them? Because if we're able to watch all these terrorists, there wouldn't be any terrorist attacks. Of course, I know that's oversimplistic. But the reality is, what we can do, if they're not British citizens, we can deport them. If they are British citizens, we can intern them. This is something that used to happen in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, and oh, it didn't work and all the rest of it. Well, actually, it actually did work. So we could intern the jihadists we can't get rid of. The ones that we can get rid of, send them back, wherever they're from. Most of those countries that they're from are probably fully under the control of jihadists now anyway, like Syria, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan. Send them home. Half of them go home for Christmas anyway. Well, not Christmas, you know what I mean. Whatever holidays they decide to go home on. So there's just a few, just to get us going on how we can deal with the problem of Islamism. And if this was done, what this would do, it would solve the so-called Islamophobia problem. Because when, oh yes, the other one I want to come to, and I'll say it now before I forget. Man, that sun's in my eyes, that's bright. The other one I want to talk about is the Islamist MPs. I think it's quite fair to legislate that anybody who is standing to be an MP who really wants to destroy the United Kingdom and have it as some sort of part of the caliphate, well, they can't stand. It's just as simple as that. They can't be MPs. They might get votes from a whole lot of backward tribesmen, but they can't stand. It's not legitimate. Most of the votes are probably fraudulent anyway. So let's start thinning that out. Let's start doing away with postal voting and all that sort of stuff. Because I don't really want Islamists in Parliament. People who are openly calling for the slaughter of Jews and for intifada, I don't really want them in our Parliament. So there's a few ideas of how we can thin out the numbers of the Islamists. And the point I was going to make about that, and this is a very serious point, the moderate Muslims, and we know them, think about people like Shohab, Lubna, other people that have left Islam, apostates and so on and so forth, they should be protected by law. And the reality is, they are very, very vulnerable. A friend of mine, Mufassal Islam, left Islam, and he went back to it because he just couldn't hack the pressure he's been put under by Islamist thugs. And he said to me, he says, Richie, I have no choice, I've got a family, they're threatening my family. And that man had to go against his principles and go back to Islam. He was one of the fiercest critics of Islam that I've ever met. And it was very sad. I've got some of his videos, I'll maybe start reposting those, because he really knew his stuff and he got into them. Another friend of mine who was an ex-Muslim, Sam Solomon, died very recently. He was a Sharia judge. He lived his life in hiding in the UK because he was scared of Islamists. So if the Islamists go, the genuine moderate Muslims, people like Ed Hussein, who used to be a radical and who saw the light, those sorts of people, Sam Solomon, Mufassal Islam, Lubna, Shohab, all our friends who are genuine moderate Muslims, well, their lives are going to be a lot easier, and they're going to have a lot less stress and a lot less worry because the radicals aren't going to come after them. And the other thing, I was going to say this earlier, it will deal with the issue of so-called Islamophobia. Because if all the Islamists have gone and all the Muslims that are causing problems have gone or have literally had their wings clipped and they can't push their poisonous ideology in the UK anymore, then the counter-jihad movement will have no reason to exist, because the threat of jihad and the threat of the Muslim takeover of the United Kingdom will be completely gone. And it's very simple. We can do it legally, we can do it legitimately, we can do it without upsetting our genuine, hard-working, kind, generous Muslim friends. We just get rid of all the wrong uns that are basically causing problems in their communities. And the other thing is, if we ban the burqa and start emancipating Muslim women, I think a lot of them, once they realise what Western women do, will start bidding their husbands off, living free lives. And again, if the Islamists and these fundamentalist Muslims go after them and start harassing them and threatening to kill them, well, again, the police have got to come down very, very hard on them. I think the emancipation of Muslim women would be an amazing thing. And my goodness, how the left have managed to join themselves to Islamists when the way they treat Jews, gays, women, people that don't believe what they believe, how the left has joined themselves to that shows total hypocrisy. But there's some solutions. They're very moderate solutions. There's nothing there that's extreme. And I think any government that's going to get into power has to literally grab this bull by the horns. Now, when you do this, I have no doubt that there will be a massive kickback from the Jihadi Johns and the Jihadi Janes. The real fanatics, they're going to go mental. The left are going to go mental. They're going to play the human rights card, even though what we're trying to do is protect people's human rights, protect animal rights, protect the rights of people who leave Islam, protect the rights of Jewish people. So, but when we put this into practice, if we do get government and it's put into practice, how do you deal with the kickback? Now, this is the final little bit of the video today. We start a regiment in the British Army. This is the government. The government raises a regiment, and it's happened very recently. There's been the Ranger Regiment has been formed. Well, the regiment that I want them to stand up, the MOD to stand up, would be the Home Defence Regiment, the HDR, the Home Defence Regiment. And that would be made up of ex-policemen, ex-army veterans, new recruits. It would have a cadet stream of young people from vulnerable areas, from all backgrounds, from black, white, brown, whatever, every racial background. The only qualifying issue would be that the people have to swear an oath of allegiance on the Bible to the United Kingdom. And then they could have a home defence role, because if there is a real major pushback from Islamists when they realise they're not going to get what they want, we need to be able to defend ourselves. But we also need to recruit moderate Muslims into that grouping and into that regiment. And I would suggest we probably need about 30,000 full-time and part-time soldiers. I think the UDR probably had about 25,000. So 30,000 isn't a lot, but if there was any major disorder from the Islamists, then what they could do is basically back up the civil power. So in other words, they would work under the police to a great extent. But obviously they'd also be very well trained, and they'd be doing their patriotic duty to protect the homeland. And I mean, when you look at Israel, every Israeli has to serve in the IDF. I'm not saying this would be compulsory at all. This would be a very, very attractive career prospect for young people. They could do it full-time or part-time. For old gits like me that served and missed the military, it would be a very, very attractive prospect, because the TA, to be honest with you, when you've been in the military, when you've been in the full-time military, you looked at the TA, you went, nah, that's not really for me. And that's not an attack on the TA, but it's just a different level of soldiering. But if this was done in a very professional way, that ex-infantrymen, ex-marines, ex-paras, ex-men from the Yorkshire Regiment, whatever the regiment is, could join and have a sense of purpose and feel they're doing their patriotic duty, well, that would solve a lot of problems. And you could have the older veterans mentoring the young lads that are coming through. And again, you'd have a full-time cadre that would be able to interact with all the different branches of the military and just do what needs to be done to protect the country. And I think doing that could be a way of actually bringing the country together and bringing all the people from whatever background. If you love this country, whether you're Christian, Hindu, Sikh, Muslim, Jew, whatever religious background you're from, if you can identify with the United Kingdom and you love the flag, when I've been to the demos against anti-Semitism, there's as many Union Jacks there as there is Stars of David. And again, it's patriots. These are people who love the country. And it would be a great way of promoting civic nationalism and taking the fangs out of anybody that wanted to do anything radical and wanted to get involved in anything crazy. So they're the solutions. But the first thing we need to do is get a government. And that government, to me, needs to be advanced now. You've got to understand, when I'm spouting off and saying this on the video, it's completely immaterial, really, unless we get a government in that is willing to do what needs to be done. And it's also immaterial in a way because obviously I'm not making policy, but I've got a lot of friends in advance that are making policy, and I'll be feeding my ideas into them. Now, whether they take them up or not is up to them. I know my ideas will work because I've been thinking about this for a very long time. Obviously, everything needs polished. There's a lot more you can add. There's probably quite a lot you can take away from what I've said as well. But it's giving solutions, because everyone's just going to the default mode. Oh, it's all going to kick off. It's either going to be civil war or it's going to be an Islamic state of Britain. Well, neither of those things need to be true if we do the things that I've just said, because the things that I've just said there will work 100%. And I keep going on about these sort of things, and I keep going back to how we're going to save the UK, how we're going to make things better. And I keep doing it because when I'm talking, I'm thinking, and as the ideas come, well, they come out. I mean, obviously I've written a lot of this stuff down as well, but as the ideas come, I've got to speak them out, and I've got to get them out there into the blogosphere, the social media world, so that people can listen to them and say, yeah, that actually makes sense. That would save the country. So there's some ideas. I think my ideas are great. I think those ideas are great. And I'm convinced that they work. And the other thing is, I keep going back to this as well, but to me, the top priority in my life is a spiritual solution. And I know when I'm close to God, the ideas I get are a lot better than when they're just coming out of my head. So when I start getting serious about my faith, I believe God helps us, and God gives, spit my teeth out, God gives us ideas and shows us what to do. So yeah, that's the plan. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you all very soon.